address the small boats.
But there are other changes to the law too. Now, the government has introduced this notion of the Nationality and Borders Act, where you create an offence of illegal entry. Now, that matters because it makes a criminal of anyone who comes to this country who hasn't taken a legal route if they haven't got permission. Would you scrap that offence if you win the election?
Well, it's not working, is it? So
that wasn't the question. Would you scrap? Would you scrap it?
But it's important to look at what the government has done. So they promised a whole series of things in their Nationalities and Borders Bill. They promised that they would make it a criminal offence. They promised that it would stop the boats crossings. They promised that it would break the business model. They promised that it would cut the number of boats and that everybody would be returned. In fact, the opposite has happened.
But Yvette Cooper, I'm asking you a very specific question.
I know, but
if you were Home Secretary, the government has introduced this concept, this offence of coming to this country and taking an illegal entry. Would a Labour government scrap that offence? It's really important for all the reasons that you've been saying, but it's a very specific question. Would you scrap that offence?
It is, but it's important to see why it is not working, Laura. So the reason
if it's not working, why wouldn't you scrap it?
Then let me finish the point. It's important because it is not working. What you've seen instead is an increase in the number of boats. You've seen a drop in the number of decisions being taken, longer delays in the system, and all that they've done is ramp up the rhetoric. So what it shouldn't be is a criminal offence for someone to arrive from Ukraine who has been fleeing persecution and conflict.
Well, Ukrainians can come here
asylum.
Legally, Yvette Cooper, as you well know.
But if they don't have the right papers, then they are effectively committing a crime.
But if, as
that
you
doesn't
say,
make any sense, and it doesn't help. So we don't think that is what the arrangement should be, and that is what we voted against. We voted against the Nationalities and Borders Bill because all it's done is increase the rhetoric, and it's actually made the problem worse.
But this
it's
is a
added
really
to the delays,
important and specific question.
We've seen more boats arriving.
And I'm going to have another go. If Labour wins the election and you're the Home Secretary, would you get rid of that criminal offence of illegal entry?
But I answered your question, Laura, because the point is it is wrong to have a situation where if somebody arrives from Ukraine with the wrong papers, it should be a criminal offence. It's already against the immigration rules. There are ways in which you can have an immigration response, and the asylum system already should be able to return people who are not fleeing persecution and conflict. That's not happening either at the moment. So it's why we called for a fast track for Albania, because you do have people, and for other safe countries, you do have people arriving in the United Kingdom who are then from countries that are not fleeing persecution and conflict, no decisions being taken on their cases, only less than 1% of cases from Albania in the last year have been decided. And that means that people aren't being returned if they're not fleeing persecution and conflict, but refugees who aren't getting support. So we think there should be a fast-track system. So make the asylum system work, return those who are not fleeing persecution and conflict, support those who are, because the UK has always done its bit to help those fleeing persecution and conflict, but don't make people who are fleeing persecution and conflict, for example from Ukraine, into criminals, because that is unworkable as well as being wrong.
Yvette Cooper, we must leave it there. It's a huge agenda, and it's great to have you on the programme as ever. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Now, you didn't think we were going to get to the end of 2022.